What is going on YouTube? Thank you for joining me with another TDH upload. This is part 4 for my Johnson 6-horse refresher, rebuild, whatever you guys want to call this. If you are new to the channel or new to this video, be sure to jump back and check out the other 3 uploads on this refresher. We bought this thing dirt cheap, got it running, and we've been fixing it up, and now hopefully this is the last bit of parts that we're going to be installing on it today and getting it in the water on the back of the John boat and actually enjoying it. So let me turn this camera around and let me show you a crazy item that I was somehow able to come across. In part 3, we removed the thermostat housing and pulled the thermostat out, and what we found in there explained why this engine was not moving any water. It was full of sand, seashells, all the corrosion. I mean, it was just built up and it was disgusting. I'll show you guys the thermostat if you didn't watch part 3. It's pretty obvious as to why no water was moving out of this thing. And once we replaced this and the gasket, dropped it back on there and cleaned out the housing, running the engine yesterday in the bucket of water, it flowed so much more water than it ever has been. And if you guys saw part, I think 2, we did the impeller, or refreshed the impeller, and we know the impeller is good, and now we know that this thermostat is good and the housing is good and it's all cleaned up. I want to move to cleaning the water jackets inside of the head and inside of the block or the crankcase. Now, if I lift the head, I'm gonna obviously expose the head gasket, and that needs to be replaced. And this motor is a 1972, so parts are getting harder and harder to find. But I guess I should go out and buy a lottery ticket or something, because somehow, some way, my local boat place here, Boathouse Discount Marine, they had one on the shelf from OMC. So this is an original equipped manufactured part. 2013 was the date on this unit here. So amazingly, we've got an original OEM head gasket ready to go on there. And then if you guys notice, I got a new roll pin for my drive shaft. You guys can see I've already got the lower out. I pulled this off camera, ran up to the boat store and grabbed my parts. So we're gonna get that installed, get this installed, and then before we finish out and get ready to take her into the water, I'm gonna go ahead and flush with some gear case lube, so that way I can put some fresh lube in there. And I know I got a Yamaha brand, but it's all the same. It should work just fine. So let me shut up and let's knock this pin in real quick, get that reinstalled, and then we'll move to the head gasket, get the head gasket done, and then we'll have to mock it up on the boat and see how the cavitation plate sits the cavitation plate sits along the bottom of the boat. Hopefully it sits up nice and level. Hopefully I don't have to do any adjustment on the transom, because these props, these lengths, on these shafts are about the same. So, okay, all right, I'm running my mouth. Let's get to work. First thing we're gonna do is knock this roll pin into the drive shaft real quick. I've already got it just somewhat started. I'm just gonna lightly tap it, make sure it's even on both sides. Okay, go just a tad bit more. Okay, I think that's about even there. That looks pretty good. I probably could tap it in just a tad bit more. That looks pretty good. We'll go with that. All right, I'm gonna get this reinstalled. You guys have already seen this section here of me reinstalling the shaft, but all you have to do, well, the biggest thing that you have to do, let me grab my flashlight real quick, is you got to align that roll pin with its housing. So if you guys look up in here, it's going to be real difficult for us to see. There's a little slot up in there where the roll pin has to lock into. Let me see if I can zoom. Alright, it's not focusing very well, but if you guys look and see those 2 slots there to the left and to the right, that's where the pin is going to have to sit. And it holds the spring and the bushing to the lower, well, I guess to the power head. From the lower unit to the power head, it holds the bushing and the seal in place for the lower unit. So I'm gonna get this installed, battle with this real quick, and then once that's all in there and secured, we'll move on to knocking out the head gasket. That should be rather simple. These 2 lower bolts are gonna be a little tough to get to, but other than that, it should come right out. We'll clean it up and get it reinstalled and then take it to the water. All right guys, plugs are removed. Moving on to pulling off this head. Just a 3/8. Grab the wrong one. Head's off, and surprisingly, doesn't look too bad in there. Doesn't look too bad. Got the old gasket here. I just pulled the hardware out so that way I knew the orientation of which way they went. Look at the head here. And those water jackets are pretty clean. I'm sure replacing that thermostat and having that flow of water through there really helped. All right, what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and start cleaning up this surface, prepping this up for the new head gasket. Chase it with a razor blade, and then probably just a little bit of Scotch-Brite to knock down anything that's built up. I'll do the same thing for the head, and then we can get this guy reinstalled. This should be pretty straightforward. And while I'm in here, I'm gonna also take my pick, kind of just pick around at anything, and I'll grab my air hose and then start blasting down into these water jackets here. Right there and right there I'll blast into. And then there should be one, yeah, there's one right up in the back there I'll blow some air into, just to make sure those are free. I mean, we saw how much water was coming out of it yesterday, but just for the peace of mind. Got these surfaces cleaned up. I'm gonna go through these water jackets in the head, just kind of clean everything out, make sure there's nothing built up, blow some air through this stuff just like I did with the block or the crankcase, whatever you guys want to call it. Just gonna go through and clean all that up. Got my surfaces all prepped on both the block and the head here. I'll go through a couple more minutes, like I said, and then once I'm all done, I'll brake clean it and blast it with some air and then start the reassembly process. Okay guys, head's going back on. New head gasket's all lined up. Got one bolt in there just to line it up for me. I'm gonna put another one in just 1 second. I put a little bit of forma gasket on these head bolts because they are next to the water jackets. I just want to confirm that no water is going to get down into the hardware. Not going too crazy with it, just a little bit of a glob there. Lovely train. I love it when the ratcheting side of the ratchet wrench doesn't ratchet. Got in that awkward stage of no, it's not tight enough, but it's just loose enough where it won't ratchet. Okay, so you guys get the point here. This is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna throw you guys on another time lapse. Let me do that with a socket. I'm gonna throw the rest of these bolts in there. I didn't go tightening them down too much, just snug enough to where it's pushed up against the head, so that way I can follow with all the bolts. And then I'll look up the torque numbers on these guys and torque them down to the best of our ability. These ones are going to be a little tough because you can't get a ratchet on them, but the rest of them I should be able to put my torque wrench on. So here we go. Head bolts are in there. I've got to snug this one up just a tad bit more. Now I'm about to go through and do my torque sequence. Looking online, I'm finding anywhere between 60 inch-pounds, 80 inch-pounds, and 90 inch-pounds. So I'm just gonna snug them up by hand, and I think, you know, 60 or 70 foot-pound or inch-pound would be sufficient enough. So I'm gonna go through, kind of work in a circular motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Somewhere in that order is what I'm gonna do. But I'm gonna snug these guys up and we'll let them sit so that way that Permatex can dry up. When we're done with that, we're gonna move on to recording the pole starter. I picked up some pull cord also. I forgot to show you guys in here. So we got some fresh pull cord. I wanna get that wound on there, and then after that's done, the final thing will be the gear lube. And once that's all squared away, we'll probably pop the boat up on my stands, or maybe set it in the bed of the truck, figure out some way so that way we can drop the motor on the back of it and see how the cavitation plate sits to the bottom of the boat, and then go play in some water, because that's what I'm fiending to do. Moving on to the pole cable, or the pole rope, whatever you guys want to call it. I just cut this guy off and then let this unwind. These are pretty straightforward, these guys here. Just let it unwind just a little bit there. Okay. I didn't think it still had that much tension on it. Apparently it still does. There's the old rope. I need to get this guy out. I should have bought a new handle because this handle is really janky. Kind of mad at myself for that. Okay, we're back. I ran up to the hardware store and grabbed myself a new handle because that one was just janky as heck. Get this guy up just a little bit here. Pass it through. Hold all the way up. And now this guy, if you just simply crank it counterclockwise and then just keep the index down, it will start building tension. So I'm gonna do about, I'd say 15 turns or so and see where we're at with that. So there's one turn. There's two. There's 10. There's 11. And we're getting a lot of tension on it. So I might call it at 12. Yeah, I'm gonna call it at 12. To bring this guy just around a tad bit more. Make sure it doesn't. Bad timing for an air compressor to kick on. Pulling it up here and I'm making a knot. right. Pass this up and through. So I just tied a quick knot on the inside of this guy, so that way it would hold it. And now I have a second piece that goes into my handle, so that way I can lock it in. Here's that second piece. Hopefully it's zinc, because if it's not, it's gonna rust. Heat this guy up just a little bit more to get this to fit through. And I'm just going to shove the rest of the rope in there. And there we have it. That was my rewind slider itself. She's probably seen better days. It wouldn't surprise me if it's the original. But they're like $100 to replace, so I'm going to see what I can do with her the best that I can until she finally calls it quits. Now that the pull cable's done, or the pull rope is done, I'm gonna go ahead and drain this lower unit if I can get this thing loose without damaging it. No, it's not too watery, so that's good, reassuring. Let that drain out for a couple seconds, then we'll pump some new fluid in from the bottom until it drains out from the top. Then we'll put the cap on it and mock it up on the boat. Got my pump hooked up to the lower unit. Gonna drop it down here in my bottle of fluid. And we're gonna start pumping away. And we're just gonna run it until the gear fluid comes out the top hole. And then once it comes out a little bit, we'll get ready to reinstall the plug. There we have it. Okay, so in theory, when I pull this lower one out, it should hold it. All right, freshly lubricated. All right, got the boat loaded up in there. I got my spare tire just hanging out in there as a counterweight. I know my luck, I'd freaking go put this thing in there, and the engine would outweigh the boat and then fall over, and I'd be all butt hurt. Oh man, that is real close. guys down. I love that the green matches. Okay, so it's just slightly below. Just slightly. I wonder if I trim it up one more. Walk it. Actually, maybe better on one that's sitting down. We're gonna have to see, to be honest with you. Turn off that lock. That's the setting 1 right there. Which again, it's pretty darn close. Okay, well, I think I might run it as is and see how it does. I'll keep an eye on the prop to see if there's any cavitation that's happening to the prop. But I think it fits okay. I do wish it was a tad bit higher, but to be honest with you, I'm not gonna really mess with the transom board much more because that sucker's bolted in there good. Man, that green looks real good on the back of that boat. She matches real nicely. Beautiful. Alrighty. Well, I think I may throw it in the trash can and run it one more time before I take it to the water with the fresh head gasket on there, make sure she runs, and then we'll load it up and take it out to the water. Okay folks, well, this is probably not what you guys want to hear, but this video is getting rather lengthy. We're at the 20-minute mark and I don't want to keep dragging it out any longer. So what I think I'm going to do is make a part 5 in this series. That way we can take this out and make an entire video of me just actually running the boat, see how it does, and if there's any flaws or anything that fails, or if it doesn't work out for me, I'll be able to have a full entire video showing you guys that rather than being just a couple minutes of me dunking it in the water and running it. And then also the other thing that I would like to do is download a speed app or something, figure out how fast I go and what I can do like numbers wise with this motor. And then once I get a coil for the 4-horse, I'd like to take that out and see the numbers that I make with this, just to see the difference on the same boat with a 4-horse and a 6-horse. And I don't know, just to get the general idea because I'm very curious and I want to know. But okay guys, I do apologize again. Be on the lookout for part 5 when we get this thing in the water and we're testing it and running it. Actually, yeah, I hope it's part 5, part 6, man. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate you watching. I will see you guys in the next upload. Later.